Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the murder of Lilley. This was a suggested case by Lee, so thank you very much for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. I'd just like to let you know that I mean no disrespect to anyone I'm going to talk about today. I've simply gathered all of this information from the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. Lilley was born in 1927 and she was married to Jack Lilley. They went on to have one son who they named John. Later on in life, John actually moved to Tasmania, which was several years before Lilley's death. So it seemed like she didn't really have any family in the area. She had 3 grandchildren and she lived in Failsworth in Greater Manchester in England. Lilley was unfortunately a widower. Her husband Jack had passed away in September 1981 at the age of just 56, which is quite a young age, so that was very sad. Not only that, Lilley never really found anyone else. Some people do actually find other partners. Lilley unfortunately never did. She lived on her own, I believe, for 12 years since her husband passed away, and she became quite reclusive. It's really sad because she was, by all accounts, a very lonely woman. And that just breaks my heart. She was constantly tormented by local youths. I believe she was described as being a little bit strange by kids. And because of that, kids are cruel. They used to torment her for it. They would knock on her door, constantly asking for sweets, banging on the door for money, breaking her windows. This poor woman really was tormented that much that she used to give them food, she used to give them money, just to kind of keep them at bay and make them go away and satisfy them. And then they would leave her alone for a bit to try and stop the incessant battery of abuse that she used to receive. But then obviously that sets a precedent then, because these kids would then come back and bang on her door so that they could get more money and more sweets. So it was just a vicious circle. Lilley was 71 years old when she was brutally murdered by 2 teenage girls. Sarah Davy, 14, and Lisa Healy, 15. This case is just awful. What they did to her was horrible and brutal. She was a lonely old lady who had done nothing to nobody. She just wanted to live out the rest of her life in peace, which she deserved to do. Everyone does. These girls didn't afford this. They stole her life away, and they were so young. It can be really shocking when people, children and things of such a young age, or teenagers, commit these crimes. I mean, we know now, unfortunately, that there are a lot of child killers. Take the horrendous things that were inflicted on poor Jamie Bulger, for instance. That was done by children. So, unfortunately, we are not unaccustomed to these kind of cases now. Although I believe at the time it was less likely. Sarah Davy was kind of dubbed as one of the most notorious young killers at the time. Sarah and Lisa had ran away from home and they went on to befriend poor lonely Lilley. She went on to invite them into her home for a cup of tea. She thought they were 2 nice teenage girls. She trusted them enough to let them in her home and offer them a beverage. She would have never anticipated the terrible fate that would befall her because of this. So once inside, the girls began teasing her. They began taunting her, generally bullying and just torturing poor Lilley. They actually went on to squirt shampoo in her eyes, and they cut her legs with a knife. They beat her, they gagged her with a bandage that they basically tied so tight that it knocked her dentures out and into her throat, and this would lead to her being suffocated. Once she had passed away, they crammed her body into a wheelie bin. They also threw in a photo of her son as a baby as one last insult, I guess. They walked a wheelie bin through the streets of Failsworth, laughing along the way, and one of them actually said, "I can't believe we're doing this." They then dumped the wheelie bin with a body inside in the Rochdale Canal. So they'd just murdered Lilley, they'd just dumped her body. What do they do next? Do they run? Do they try and hide? Do they do anything to try and conceal their crime? No, they go back to her house. They start racking up a phone bill, making hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. They take her pension money and go and buy chocolate and sweets. They just enjoyed it, eating their stolen sweets with the stolen money, essentially, from the lady that they had just murdered. It's just awful. So you could possibly say that maybe they didn't intend to murder her. So if they meant to torture her like they did, and because they tied it so tight, her dentures accidentally went down her throat and she suffocated, maybe it wasn't their intention to murder her, but they didn't show any remorse. They were laughing. They went and took her body to the river and they were laughing about it. They didn't show any remorse whatsoever. They didn't care. So even if it might have been an accident, which I don't believe it was, they didn't show any signs that this could have been the case at all. They went back, they racked up a phone bill, they stole her money. So Lilley was reported missing on Sunday the 27th of September in 1988 after a neighbour had not seen her since Wednesday the 23rd. Police searched and an underwater diving team discovered the bin containing Lilley's body the same day that she was actually reported missing. The following day, they questioned both girls in relation to her death. During the 8-week trial, the details of Lilley's murder came out and people were rightly shocked. The detective on the case spoke about the shock of finding the girls were capable of mounting such a wicked attack on a poor defenseless old lady. The judge described them as hard young women who carried out an act of unspeakable cruelty and had not shown the slightest bit of remorse or regret for it. In 1999, Sarah and Lisa were both given life sentences. After serving years into the sentence, there was kind of some controversy that came around them. So Sarah was allowed to have her hair done. She was allowed regular trip from a beautician and was apparently even allowed to go on nights out and go on shopping trips in York, where she would mix with people that didn't know her history. They were just unaware of her past, and she was allowed to just mingle with them. Lisa was also afforded luxuries, and she was allowed things such as her hair coloured, her nails done on a weekly, monthly basis, things like that. Now, I don't really understand this because these girls committed murder. They were in prison for murdering an innocent elderly woman, yet they were allowed such freedom. They were able to go to tanning salons in winter to keep up the tan that they gathered whilst in prison in the summertime. Even a former inmate said, "When you think of what she did to that poor woman, it's shocking to think that she was able to enjoy herself like that." Her room was full of toiletries and nice clothes that she had been sent so she could always look her best. People think she's in there for punishment, but she's enjoying herself. Lisa even got pregnant after spending a night out on day release with another convict, and in 2009 she gave birth. The people of Failsworth and the neighbours surrounding Lilley were shocked to learn about the murderer's lifestyle, and the case hit the headlines once more the same year that it was revealed that taxpayers faced a bill to give Lisa and her child a new identity. So basically the child could grow up without the notoriety of her mother's crime. She was released in 2009 and gained her new identity. Linda Tagger, a retired doctor's receptionist, actually stated, "Why should she get such special treatment? What happened to justice? Lilley has not been given any." Lilley was just a poor old lady who lived on her own for a long time. She didn't harm anyone and she deserved a bit of dignity in her old age. Those girls robbed her of that. Sarah has since been released from prison in 2013. And upon this, she actually began living in very close proximity to where she committed the crime. I believe within 4 miles. The people of Failsworth that were around at that time were certainly not happy about this. They say that although that they've moved on as a community, it kind of seeing her all the time brought back horrible memories, and the people didn't want to have to relive it. They think that she shouldn't have been allowed to live so close, but I believe that the judge can kind of put a term in the conditions that they can't live in the area or near the area that they committed the crime. However, that's usually done for family members, and like I said, Lilley's son John was not even in the same country. She had no family members in that area, so the judge didn't deem it necessary to actually put that condition in it. It was a very, very sad case all around. After Lilley was actually murdered, she was placed in a grave with her husband Jack, and she didn't even get a name put on the headstone. There has been appeals and things done to try and get her name on the headstone. Her son John did one in 2009 through the Chronicle. He made an appeal to try and tidy up the plot and get a name put on the stone. I do believe that many stonemasons came forward to say that they would do the work. They went with one of them, and that one actually did fall through. And because they'd not kept a record of the offers, it didn't end up actually getting done, unfortunately. Lilley's headstone remained unchanged. Another visit in 2013 from a friend prompted another appeal to finally get her name on her headstone. And it was actually done later that year. With thanks to the generosity of local residents and Shaw stonemason Christian Haig, 15 years after her death, her name was finally put on her headstone along with her husband's. These girls committed such a heinous crime and were pretty much living a pretty normal life in jail, which they didn't afford Lilley. And honestly, I was quite surprised by this when I did look into this case. And I really, like I said, I really find it so sad. She was tormented and tortured mentally and physically while she was alive, because children can be cruel, and in their eyes she was a little bit odd. After all of that, her life was stolen, and this poor lady deserved better. If you guys have any more suggestions you'd like me to look into, please do let me know. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Lilley. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.